right. Hello everyone. Great to be here on the final day of the summit to moderate a panel on developing a great app product with you wonderful speakers. So let me briefly introduce first the company I work for and then myself. I work for App Samurai Incorporation as head of product, and App Samurai brings a comprehensive approach to mobile growth with its 3 products. These 3 products actually touch the lives of mobile app marketers at different points of need and different stages of their life cycle. So first off is a user acquisition platform called App Samurai, and second one is Intercepted for real-time fraud detection and prevention tool to protect the investments of mobile marketers. And finally, Storyly, my current focus, and it takes about 25 hours a day nowadays. It's an in-app engagement platform that helps mobile brands and app owners keep their hardly acquired users engaged, active, and ultimately loyal. It brings the familiar experience of social native stories, just like we have in Instagram, into any app without almost any code. So my job as a product manager and personal passion as Aykut is basically to understand the needs and pain points of anyone in the role of managing an app. For the past 2 years, I have been focused on how apps work to retain their users and what is working against them to accomplish this, how users today interact with apps and prioritize the interaction with their phones. So during these 2 years, a pandemic came into our lives, and for some industries, this resulted in an accelerated and maybe unpredicted growth, which some suspect they now may be struggling to keep. And on the flip side of it, some apps had to adjust and rethink constantly to fight the uncertainty of past year. The question of how to engage users was at the center of it all. So I am so excited that we will get to discuss it in 5 different scenarios today with you all. And I mean, why don't we start with a brief introduction from everyone? And as a tradition of the summit, name a single app you cannot live without, and it cannot be your app. There are so many apps to choose from with the pandemic. And let's start with you, Brindi.
Hi, I'm Brindi Manolache. I work at Poshmark. An app I can't live without would be the Adobe Sketch app. So I'm a very visual thinker, and I like all kinds of apps where you can sketch out ideas and send them to others. I'm choosing Adobe Sketch even though I use it on my iPad, not really my phone, but I do love it and I use it every day. So I would be very sad if I didn't have it.
Oh, all right. I mean, it's a great app, I know, from iPad. And thank you so much, Brindi. So I am handing it over to you, Chris.
All right. Hey, I'm Chris. I lead the growth team at Strava. And maybe one app that I can't live without, I'll say Reddit. What can I say? I love consumer mobile apps and I love communities. I have my own communities that I'm like heavily embedded in. So love kind of getting inspiration from them and also just being part of their community.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Rounding it over to Nicholas.
Hey everybody, I'm Nicholas Beck. I'm a director of product here at K Health. I think the app that I absolutely could not live without the last 365 days is an app called Pedometer Plus Plus. It was something that really motivated me to leave my apartment and get my steps in and my movement in, especially during the lockdown. And here at K, we actually use the app a lot to do a steps competition. So I use it for tracking and reporting so that we could all really kind of rally around moving around while we're all stuck inside.
Yeah, and I bought that device just to keep and count my steps, you know. So I know that passion. Let's continue with Sukriti.
Hi everyone, I'm Sukriti. I work on mobile platforms and accessibility at Spotify. An app that I can't live without is ForFlight. It's an app for pilots. I'm currently training to be instrument rated, so that's one app I cannot live without at the moment.
Perfect. And Han?
Hey everyone, I'm Han Cho. I'm a product manager at Etsy on the mobile consumer-facing app. An app I can't live without. It's a little bit boring, I guess. Slack is what I would pick. With the pandemic and everyone, I think, working from home, I think Slack actually helps me to leave the house and I could respond to things on the go, which has been pretty great. So yeah, Slack.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. And we are all working from home, and the Slack is always open, of course, and all around great answers. So getting back to the topic of engagement, and I would like to start with you, Chris. Fitness market is a very, very competitive one. We know it very well, actually. And for in-home fitness applications, the COVID era was a growth opportunity, of course. However, for running and cycling apps, it might have been a challenging period, right? So the first question is, how was it for Strava? And the second question is, like, I would like to ask you about the gamification elements in Strava, because, like, I know that you have been using gamification a lot, and with the latest Strava update, the challenges and the competitions, it takes it to another level now. So I think it would be great to hear your experiences regarding gamification, and how do you basically define the success for the specific parts of the gamification flow?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, so kind of touching on the how was COVID for us, we definitely had a tailwind in our backs, and we were, I think across all fitness applications, a lot of people around the world were just looking for outlets to exercise and connect with their friends through exercise, and kind of maintain that motivation through these digital apps. And so we certainly were lucky with that. We also made a lot of changes last year. We really focused on the athlete experience to improve that, and that kind of has done very well as well. So definitely, it's been a fun, very interesting year over at Strava. In terms of how we think about gamification, you kind of alluded to, we just recently launched this major feature called Group Challenges, where you can set up a little group with a couple of your friends, and you can challenge each other, whether it's by distance or whoever, spends the most time exercising, all that kind of stuff. So there's some really cool ways to motivate, within a small group itself. And that's, that kind of leads to what is our overall strategy at the moment in terms of building those communities. We really are thinking about how do we help athletes connect with the people that they care about most. So that's definitely top of mind for us. That's not to say we're moving away from the broader community. People get so much motivation from that, but it was the inspiration for why we built this Group Challenges feature. One thing that's interesting, I always get people ask me about gamification and those specific techniques around gamification. Strava's 10-year-old, maybe 11, 12 years old now, so I don't know the full history of the company, but at least within the past couple of years, we don't talk about gamification as a concept or as a principle to follow at every step. I think with gamification, there's some really good theories behind it, but then there's others that just don't really suit our community. First and foremost for us, it's about talking to the community, whether that's one-on-one through interviews with athletes, or that's connecting through our forums, all those types of things. We care most about those things, and we want to hear what type of competition motivates athletes. And we generally see that people will talk about competition in terms of competing with the community, competing with myself, and then competing with those I care about. And so that's how we break it down, and where we get kind of a lot of the motivation to build these products.
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice. And since we have worked with a lot of verticals, I mean, a lot of apps from different verticals, we have seen similar patterns in different verticals as well, especially regarding the gamification part. So I guess we have a lot of things to learn from Strava, because like you are very experienced app right now. Thank you very much for the insights, Chris. Let's continue with Etsy. So Han, what I love about Etsy is, I think it's pretty similar to Spotify, by the way, but how you guys personalize the experience within the application. So I'm pretty sure that maintaining that level of personalized experience in a C2C application could be challenging, since you are not directly involved in the supply side of things. So I want to ask the biggest challenges you have faced in terms of providing this personalized experience, and maybe you may give some insights on the process of deciding the next personalized flow within the application. I have one more question, but I want to hear from you first.
Yeah, that's a great point of like, personalization is very hard. It's not the easiest thing. I think you brought up a great point of like, Etsy is it's a two-sided marketplace for folks that may not know. We have like 90+ million items. We have like over 4 million sellers all over the world. It's not your typical marketplace. A lot of folks come to Etsy for like its unique, personalized, really handmade, really special items. It's, you know, we don't have a warehouse, we don't have mass manufacturing, we don't have a supply pipeline. It's like small businesses. And so to your point, I think when it comes to personalization, there's obviously many ways of doing it. For Etsy, at least there's two main concepts, which one is like, the one that I'm sure everyone's aware is like explicit feedback from our buyers and potential customers, where, you know, you see this in a lot of app experiences, including ours, where you know, we ask you like for cold starts and jumping off points, like, hey, you know, like, what are your favorite categories? What are the themes you care about? What potential items do you think are really special and like to your taste and style, right? So there's that explicit input that we ask our customers to give a great jumping off point. And then the second part that is also a big piece is the implicit input. So it's like not directly communicated to us, but it's from the things that our customers do. So whether it's like what you search for, what you're looking at, what you're favoriting, what items you jump to, and what categories are you going into, what are you sharing, what are you adding to cart, all of these like tiny interactions. And I'm sure like a lot of folks here can also like attest to that. With those things also really heavily influence the type of personalization you get. So like, for example, like, you know, if Nick, I'm picking on you, Nick, or like Chris is like, you know, they're like, I'm looking for like some personalized sports item, but then if Nick happened to look at like wood versus Chris were looking at leather products, and they type in a search query that's exactly the same thing, they would actually get completely different search result experiences, because we know they also looked into other categories and we personalize that experience, right? So, you know, I think there's a lot of other things that we can incorporate as next step. And like, you see this a lot in like, I'm not using this as an example that we look at, but like me personally, like if people out there use like dating apps or something, there's like swipe left to like, swipe right, or whatever the mechanism is, because I don't even know. But there's also an input of like, I don't like this, or like, let the user tell me I am actually not interested in this. And you could, obviously people get that implicitly. If they scroll past something or they don't interact with the item, it's also an indication that they're maybe not interested, but also like, how can we also explicitly allow for that? So all to say is, we have a very strong data science team and a machine learning team that uses insane amount of different technologies to say what is the best type of information and what information help us provide more relevant content. And that's ultimately the way of personalization from our perspective. Hopefully that kind of answers the question. Oh, should I keep going?
Yes,
I don't think I can give too much.
I mean, there's another side of things actually. Personalization is one thing, and you can change the context, and you can change the content and make it personalized. But the second aspect might be these mechanisms, right? That can be work for different segments. Gen Z loves to do swipe left, swipe right, but like older people, elder people, probably they don't like that experience. And I want to ask about the segmentation of Etsy users. So how do you like segment your users? And lastly, I mean, we all heard about the Depop deal, of course, and Depop is pretty famous with the like Gen Z experiences. So is it going to be part of Etsy, or do you plan to integrate both platforms in some other way?
That's a great question. Is very relevant. I can't go too much in detail, but yes, it's public information that we bought Depop. It's a great company. I think there's a really good alignment in like the community aspect, like Chris mentioned. the unique items, the sustainability of fashion and all of these things. So it was a very good match for the company. The transaction is to be finalized in Q3, so I can't go into too much detail. With that said, to your point of like Gen Z, they like swipe left, swipe right. Maybe folks, there's a demographic that may not like that. I think experiences and habits change over time. And like, obviously as product managers, we try to create unique experiences that can be enjoyed by all, or like we provide a very specific special experience for those that we want to target a specific demographic. But then at least from Etsy's perspective, while demographic taste and habits change over time, the beautiful thing about Etsy is, like we said, the content. And for us, our content are the unique items. And you would be surprised. This is the beauty of Etsy's dynamic marketplace, where Etsy's market and the item we sell can change instantly, because again, we don't have warehouses, we don't have supply chains all over the world. We have small businesses that can adjust, change, cater to the changing needs. So like, for folks on the stateside, when you see Bernie Sanders wearing a really nice mitten during the inauguration, next day, you could buy handmade mittens that Bernie Sanders wears. And like, those things are instantly available on Etsy. And so, Etsy is like extremely dynamic. It's a really dynamic marketplace. And like, the content will always change, and content, again, this unique special items will always change. And like for product managers, it's like, how do we build around the core thing? What is our core thing, which is the beautiful items and the great shopping experience, and like adjusting towards that. But then like our work is done, the most important thing is done by our amazing sellers.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the detailed answer, Han. Now I want to continue with Spotify. It's one of my favorite apps, of course. And it's kind of interesting that like when you are new to the market, I mean, you always think about the best devices, right? The best experience you can create with the app you have. However, when you have too many users, then the picture is changing basically. And now you have to think about every possible details and every possible condition your users might have. And Spotify now has more than 300 million active users. I believe you are doing so many improvements on accessibility aspects of Spotify Sukriti. So what are the latest things you released for accessibility in Spotify, and how was the customer reaction to them?
So to give a little bit of context, about 2 billion people in the world live with some form of disability, and that shows up in digital experiences as screen reader use or voice commands for visually impaired users, and depending on the kind of disability, providing alternate ways of interacting with the same content. That for Spotify is even more important given how universal our use cases, both from a consumer perspective and also from a creator's perspective. And that's some of the improvements that we've been working on. The 3 that I can think about in particular are transcripts for some of our original and exclusive podcasts. That's a huge improvement for people who live with hearing impairments, or ones that prefer reading versus listening to something. The second one is we changed some colors, or the entire color scheme actually on the app, to make it more accessible to people with color blindness, or who can't differentiate between color contrast unless it's sufficient. So you'll see the green, and that was a big statement from Spotify's perspective, is changing the green to be more accessible and inclusive. The third one is on our mobile experiences, having the ability to do dynamic text sizing, which means 2 things. It's important for people with visual impairments who are not blind but maybe want to see larger text sizes and larger tap targets so they can reliably use the app, but also for people that live with motor impairments or tremors and want larger touch target size so they can reliably tap the items that they're most interested in. Those are the 3 main improvements we've made, and it's obviously a work in progress and will always be. As the product matures, so does the accessibility of it, and that's the general principle we try to stick with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, did you get any customer feedback right after this update?
We did actually. The feedback has been really positive. We tested the text resizing changes internally in our dog food app, and we saw that there was a huge percentage of even Spotify employees changing the text size or within the app, which gave us, even though the demographic is not completely representative of our customer base, it still showed that people without explicit disabilities also like to customize their experiences. So touching back on Hans' point of personalization, there's also the customization aspect of it, where you give users the flexibility to use an app however they deem fit. And that also features into like an auto experience. It's also very accessible to someone with visual impairment if they just want to use voice to interact with an app.
Yeah. By the way, I'm really using your auto experience a lot in Turkey, and that's a great one.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for the insights. These are really important things, especially from the product manager's perspective, because we tend to focus on easy stuff and fun stuff, but these are really important parts of our product development life cycle. And
Exactly.
yeah, we should always remember all the folks and all the details, basically. Thank you very much for the details, Sukriti. That was really great. And I want to continue with K-Health. So, Nick, I have a question for you, and actually a couple of questions. K-Health is not available in Turkey. I need to confess that, first of all. But I heard that you have an awesome app, right? Medical apps and their relationship with their users are always interesting to think about, because when someone looks like a churn user for K-Health, it might be a success for you because now the person can be healthy. So from that perspective, how do you measure the retention for your users? Because it's something different, right? It's not the same with any other apps, any other end user apps. So how do you measure the retention for the users, and how do you balance the acquisition and retention strategy together?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a very unique one, at least in my background as well. I've worked at other companies where it's a lot about the funnel and how to get you through the funnel, and to be acquired, to be retained, all those kind of typical steps. But to your point, it's very unique that if a user doesn't return, or they quote unquote churn, well, that actually could mean that we actually may have resolved their concern, their condition, their issue. So a one-time subscriber with a medical resolution is absolutely a success for us because we've accomplished, or may have accomplished, our company's goal, which is provide healthcare to anyone who needs it in an affordable way. So an example is a user who is part of our anxiety program. They may have churned after, let's say, 10 months, but from our research and our data, churning after 10 months or leaving after 10 months actually may mean that they are stable and ready to get off their medication. So for us, that's a mission accomplished there. So while we may not be able to resolve everybody's urgent care needs for our users, but our users can still engage with us on our content. They could still schedule health reviews with us. And frankly, we want to make sure that they're keeping us top of mind for maybe the next time they're sick or have a medical question or a condition. So we're always constantly sort of measuring our app stickiness, uninstalls, lots of other sort of non-monetary engagement events to really understand if we're retaining the user and if they're coming back. We do have this internal cycle of where people may come in for a condition, a question, and while we definitely want to solve or get them to some sort of outcome, we are also listening and also thinking about other opportunities to kind of relate to them for other opportunities or things that we're addressing. So we have a ED flow, erectile dysfunction flow. And some of the questions actually relate to other issues that may not even require the ED to be resolved with medication. Actually may be related to that other anxiety depression program I was mentioning about before. So we're always sort of thinking about and listening to opportunities to sort of match our users to the right outcome, or really what is probably the best sort of scenario we want to put them into. But you're right, and it's really unique to be able to say, hey, actually a reason why someone came back may actually be because we have successfully helped them. And so I think one of the things that we're constantly always thinking about is how do we sort of, understand why they're coming in, but then constantly provide value and insights and really try to make sure that they're thinking about K top of mind for their future either urgent care needs or questions, or they want to speak to a doctor about, frankly, anything. Have a question about side effects to the COVID vaccine shots, you can always come here, because maybe you're thinking of us as top of mind because we helped you and you trusted us in your previous engagement.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice answer. Another thing, like, I mean, I'm really curious about all these medical apps, because like we have seen the onboarding problem a lot while we are developing Storyly. And we have seen, like, even in the e-commerce, most of the app owners need some social approval, social validation. And you know, from the landing page, right? Most of the landing page suggestion would say that you should implement the testimonials to your landing page. And especially for the medical apps, it's maybe a lot more important to have some social approval and some comments from your existing users. So I'm curious about your mobile app onboarding as well. So is it any, I mean, is there any difference between your app and other apps onboarding flow? And what do you guys measure during the onboarding cycle of that user, the activation part?
Yeah, and I think, you know, at the core of your question around testimonials and other things like that is really gaining the user's trust, especially in the field of medical. It's sensitive, it's private. You know, there is a nice little effect, you know, for digital apps like myself, where, you know, you're basically anonymous until you provide information that you would like to provide. And so that's super critical to me as part of the onboarding. Now, while as our onboarding, we measure everything. I really try to take a step back and be like, yes, we can measure everything. We can ask everything in the world, but really let's start from the, what are the questions we do want to ask, to which we can provide context and immediate value to our users, right? And so if I'm just asking any sort of question and it feels, you know, it's medical and it may feel awkward and it may feel sort of embarrassing or sensitive, I can provide you context and some value to help you better understand why we're asking for these questions. So frankly, and like I said, especially when it comes to medical information. So frankly, we do not take for granted that a user would understand why we're asking these questions. You know, height, weight, age, you know, these are calculations that come into a BMI, and BMI is a really important thing when it comes to some of your health goals and things like that. So we provide context for why we're asking these things, so that it will increase the likelihood of someone actually providing those answers, because there's going to be value on the other side. So a really quick example, here at K, we have this concept called People Like Me. And what it does is it refers to our ability, as you provide us information, to compare your unique user attributes, like your age, your sex, symptoms, location, everything else that we've asked for, or you've provided along the way, to be able to sort of actually then compare your data to our existing data set that we have. So we use this really as a rallying point, or a way to express on the front end to users why we're asking these questions, because frankly, you're adding information to this community. We're going to be able to provide you this value, which is a diagnosis, and eventually, if you'd like, you could speak to a doctor, and that's more information that the doctor has to be able to provide you a resolution that you need. So frankly, at the end of the day, my advice when it comes to onboarding stuff is develop trust. And if you aren't going to use the information, don't ask for it. Yeah.
These are great advices for the app owners, app developers from all around the world, I guess. Thank you very much for the answer, Nick. So now we will go with Poshmark, of course. And there's a buzzword now. It's a very popular topic, the social shopping. And as I said, we had a chance to work with many e-commerce apps, and we have heard a lot of social shopping stuff from all over the world. And I want to ask about that issue, actually, Brindi. So social shopping is one of the key trends, and Poshmark, it's one of the core elements of the experience is actually social shopping. And how did you manage the process, and what are the things you do within the app to keep the community feeling up in the app? So the community feeling is really important for Poshmark, and I am especially curious about the Poshmark parties. I hadn't had a chance to try that, but how that contributes to the social commerce experience within the application, I want to hear from you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for the question. You're right. Poshmark is a social marketplace, so people can buy and sell items, and also you can put up items that you have around your house for sale. So earlier it was mentioned that Etsy bought Depop. This is similar to Depop as well. So basically, the reason that social elements are important for us at Poshmark is because they're very correlated with our high retention. Our best retained users do all kinds of social actions. They post items to Posh parties. The very most engaged people are Posh party hosts. They share other people's items. So it's very much about the community engagement that helps them be better retained. So we do want to encourage actions like those. During COVID-19, during the pandemic, of course, our plans, just like many other companies' plans, got thrown out the window, and we really refocused on basics, which interestingly for us was making it easier to buy and sell. And we slightly de-emphasized the social parts of the experience because those are actually quite innovative, and sometimes they take a while for people to adopt them. If you happen to join the app and you already have friends that use it, which a lot of people do, we have a lot of organic users who come in because they know other people are using the product. I am one of those people too. I actually started using Poshmark because one of my friends loved it. So the people who come in because they know others that are already on the platform also have an advantage to being better retained. They shop with their friends. They might shop at closets that their friends recommend to them. So all of those are really strong and important network effects that we try to take advantage of.
Oh, that's really nice. And I want to ask about the video content. I mean, do you plan to use like streaming and live shopping, etc., in the future for the Poshmark?
Yeah, great question. That is definitely one of the directions of innovation that I think would make Posh parties and shopping on Poshmark even more fun. So that's definitely one of the things that we're looking at in the future, especially in 2022, because we still have, now that the pandemic is finally sort of winding down in a lot of places and the normal seasonal behavior of our customers is coming back, where we're able to sort of plan the more innovative ideas rather than sticking to the basics and being a little more safe.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I tried to bring the uniqueness of your applications, guys, but I have a couple of questions and some generic questions for you as well. So I want to start with you, Chris, and then we can round it over to everyone else, of course. What are the main challenges managing an app product right now within that pandemic era, maybe? And what are you most excited about working on over the next year? So could you please share a couple of insights with us?
Yeah, sure thing. I think especially for an app like Strava, which is heavily community driven, Brindi was kind of alluding to this, the whole dynamics of how people want to connect are just fundamentally changing. So it's really interesting. There's this new wave of social apps that are coming out now because of the way that the pandemic has changed how we interact. And that's true for Strava as well. So we are definitely kind of always thinking about what are the right ways that keep athletes motivated. And one of the things that has come up, Nick, you were alluding to the privacy and kind of just people's concerns with what are apps doing with my data. It's in the headlines every day. And so people want to know, what are we doing with their data? Which parts of their data are being exposed to other athletes? So from a personal standpoint, I'm actually really excited. I feel like that kind of the trust and safety, the privacy-minded product manager is like the next wave of a really deep skill set that the industry is starting to see, and I hope continues. I think it's only better for our industry that more and more companies kind of lean into this. And so it's definitely something that across Strava, we're all thinking about. How do we make it clear what we're doing with your data? How do we give you those controls? How do we make sure that we educate you on those controls? All that type of stuff. So that kind of mixes a little bit of what we're doing, plus a little bit of my forecast of what I'm excited about in the future.
Yeah,
hey, Chris, Chris, I totally agree with you there. I think privacy as a feature is something that we're all sort of passionate to talk about internally, and now it's time to like talk about it to our customers because they're obviously thinking about it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about, you could delete your data. You could, like, this is what we're doing with your data, all these kind of things. And in some ways, you know, one of the things that I think challenges are happening is a lot of the platforms that we're working with today are changing the rules. So in some ways, people like Apple are forcing these kind of conversations to happen, which, you know, which is in some ways it's exciting because as product people, we've always talked about this, and sometimes it's hard to sort of get it on the roadmap. But now it's like, well, now it has to be on the roadmap because Apple is making us pop alerts or these kind of things. And so all the more reason to be able to then escalate and be like, this is a feature, like the ability to delete your account, the ability to wipe your information, whatever it is. Those are one of the things that I think are one of the challenges and things that we're going to super lean into and make it a forward-facing feature. Because I think everybody's thinking about it. And, you know, I think now as product people, we have the support to say this belongs on the roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, from the challenge perspective, I completely agree with that. But for the excitement, I mean, as a product manager, I am really curious about what is the thing that makes you excited the most. Nick, do you have something in mind?
Yeah, I do actually. And so we were talking about funnels. I was talking about funnels before and retention and churn. And frankly, what I'm the most excited into the future, especially here at K, or K allows me to do this, is as we continue to add new medical conditions to support health goals or getting into primary care for users. One of the things I'm excited about is thinking beyond funnels and really thinking about our true North Star metric being medical outcomes, right? So we've done all this stuff, and then we've gotten someone to work on their anxiety, depression, and they've gotten off their medication, and now they feel better. That is a medical outcome of success. And while it may be a churn kind of thing, as we were talking about, you know, if we've done our job, we've gotten them actually to like really trust us and think about other things and sort of come back and rely on us. But the North Star metric of we actually have helped this person, I think that's, to me, is the most exciting part of this. So it's taking basically pixels off of a screen and then moving it into the real world and actually having these direct, incredible outcomes for people on their personal level. That to me, the ability to do that and frankly think about all those things, not just in the health space. I'm sure there's all of these other kind of things that we could all relate to. That's more than just a funnel. It's actually a personal change in someone's life. And I think that's the thing that's really important about, you know, people who are looking for jobs, people who are coming out of college now, all these things. They're really looking for companies that have a strong mission, and that kind of change is the thing I'm super excited, at least, you know, for the next couple of years, especially here at K.
Yeah, I completely agree with that perspective. It's a great answer. So what about you, Sukriti? I mean, what is the main challenge you are working on right now, and what is the thing you're most excited about over the next year?
Over the next year, we're all most excited about how we're going to change what the definition of a creator is and democratizing that space, especially in the audio segment, and how we can make that as inclusive as possible. A few things in particular that I'm working on are automated testing for accessibility, because traditionally we only talk about design and how to design inclusively. It becomes a very different conversation when an application has existed for years and you have to think about regressions and existing issues in addition to what's being built now. And we already have built internal tools to help developers detect these issues when they happen in code before they end up in the hands of users. So that's one thing I'm working on, and on other parts of the application and the product development lifecycle to embed inclusion as early as possible so it doesn't become an afterthought. And that's going to show up both on the creator side of things and the listener side of things.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that. I mean, that's really important topic, as I said before. So let's continue with Han.
Yeah, I think the product manager here in this panel are like obviously top tier because, like, you know, we're all thinking the same thing. I think I won't spend too much time on it, but like privacy is absolutely a concern. I think accessibility is always been a big thing, but we also really, I think this is even more unique to app product managers because we are partnering with Apple and Google. and other platforms, right? So it's kind of like we have to think very seriously of accessibility, inclusivity, privacy, and it's something that it's very front of mind, top of mind for app PMs. Hopefully also for web PMs, but definitely more for app PMs. So I totally agree with everything what folks said. And the other thing for me is, how do we scale properly with app development as more and more companies focus on the app experience, right? Because I'm sure all the PMs here think holistically. So we think about the app experience holistically, not just like a specific feature. While we might be focused on a specific feature, I think all of us care about like high quality, holistic, fluid, consistent app experience, right? Because unlike web, the app's on the person's phone. How do you start using Strava? I open my phone and I tap on this icon that says Strava, and I'm like Poshmark, and I just go straight into it. I start from the top, Spotify, like K-Health. You all start from the top, and then you go through the entire experience. So it's like, as we scale, as more people work on it, how do we maintain that holistic, consistent, fluid experience? So I think that's like the biggest challenge of PMs working in the app space. And then in terms of like excitement, I think obviously like there's a lot of things that we're all working on towards like engagement, getting people to come back. How do we increase lifetime value, user duration, all of that thing, driving value for our customers? I think the other big piece, again, that's unique for, in my opinion, app product managers or product owners is, again, like how do we leverage amazing technologies and new tech that's coming from the smartphone or device or tablet space that us as PM are like, we have unique access to, from like API, hardware, sensors, like, who would have thought like LiDAR would be a thing for all these devices? How do we want to use LiDAR? Like GLONASS, GPS, all that stuff, location, precision, like doesn't have to be precise. Or like, for Poshmark, like if we're doing video streaming, like, okay, streaming, mobile streaming, all of these like unique technologies where it's on a very tiny screen. It has to be super fast and performant, and it's gotta work whether it's the person is on their couch because of the pandemic, or once things get better, they're literally on a trail running and using the Strava app, right? So, or like they're at a party doing Poshmark stuff, or like they're getting medical advice from K-Health. So I think like using the different technologies to deliver value is what's super exciting for me.
Yeah, that's perfect answer. I mean, we do have 2 minutes left, and I want to hear from you, Brindi.
Yeah, so probably the thing I'm personally most excited about is just working on all of the great design improvements that we could be making. And of course, the pace of design improvements for the app industry is very fast. Every year there's, better, funnels and there are designs that help people be more efficient. There are designs that are more fun and appeal to younger generations. And I think it's really important for a shopping app like Poshmark to continue to stay relevant to younger audiences, to be fun, to be something that draws you in with the way that it's designed. So I think that's a really exciting area to work on. Definitely echoing what was brought up by Chris and Nick and Han, because privacy concerns are a big thing. And, these days, everybody's getting more and more used to sharing data for a reason. They don't want to share things that, they don't need to. So those are definitely two areas. And then, yeah, in the interest of time, probably the only other thing that I'm super excited about is just these innovative kind of features that help shopping be even more social. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, perfect. So we have 1 minute left. I know that we have a question from the chat box in Swapcard, and it's for you, Chris. And someone from our audience, Mary, asked that, like, I listened to a podcast with Strava's founder who talked about how they never found success with paid apps. So they stopped and just focused on making a great app and going for word of mouth. Is this still the case?
we absolutely focus on what is the best athlete experience that we can provide. I don't recall which podcast that was, and I don't know what that statement was, but I will say the internal kind of currency for how we prioritize is this going to make the experience better for athletes? That hasn't necessarily always been the case within the company, but it has certainly, we've doubled down on that. And that is absolutely fueling our subscription business now. It's great.
All right. It's great to hear that. So thank you very much, guys. It was an honor for me to be with you today and discuss about the insights and the core features of your product. So thank you very much. And thank you for all the audiences we have. Have a great time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aykut.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.